The SEC has just shocked everyone by granting accelerated approval to allow in-kind creations and redemptions for Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, which is huge news. This rule change proposal was put forward by Nasdaq, CBOE and the NYSE, and what this basically means is that now market makers can deliver or receive actual crypto instead of cash with their ETFs. So crypto ETFs are starting to be treated more and more like actual traditional ETFs, which will further incentivize the use of crypto for everyday life, for crypto to become the actual new form of money, streamline operations for institutions to adopt crypto, and this means not if, but when XRP ETF filings are approved by the SEC, the market makers will transact directly with XRP instead of the US dollar. XRP will be used all over the world. And in accordance to Marty, an investor in this video here, we know of course that Bloomberg predict a 95% chance of XRP ETF filings being approved this year in the coming months. But according to his Bank of America contacts, they are expressing a 100% chance we will see institutional XRP ETF filings approved in the coming months, and therefore XRP we'll start seeing more adoption, more demand, exploding value, and therefore for its true value to eventually be revealed. Take a listen here.
In the US, 11 XRP ETF filings are pending with the SEC, and Bloomberg and analysts are now assigning a 95% probability that at least one will be approved. Well, during the night, I've been on the phone, Bank of America contacts again, and I'm saying 100% that these ETFs will be approved. 100%.
This is very, very bullish news, huge news. So the question of course is, in that regard, what is the true value of XRP? Some say $100, maybe even $500. According to EZA Institution here, they believe, as they stated on an interview on NYSE, they believe that XRP is unrivaled, that in just 4 to 5 years from 2030, XRP will see over a 300x and be valued at $1,000. Take a listen here.
So for us, we're really bullish on Ripple, on XRP in particular, because of the inroads they've already made into the TradFi sector. They've been, really sort of diligent about getting tons of different licenses all across the world to actually make sure that they are positioned to own the space when the institutions actually come into blockchain, into crypto, which they're already starting to do with stablecoins. That's obviously a huge use case, and Ripple has their own RLUSD stablecoin, which is awesome, and we've already started educating our community on them. And ultimately for us, we're just super bullish on the mission, what they're doing already in terms of bringing all these big institutions. Hidden Road acquisition, for example, is a great example of how they're going to actually be utilizing the XRP ledger in the real world, settling trades, etc., much faster, cheaper than otherwise would be possible. And then obviously also international money payments. All of those different aspects really make it one of the formative companies of the next decade, in our opinion. And I know a lot of people have been asking for my price targets on XRP. And I think this is the first time I'll say it, but I think XRP is heading to $1,000 by 2030. So for me, it's, a super important project, and actually probably one of the most important projects out there at the moment.
XRP is currently valued at $3.13, currently up 0.19% on the daily time frame, and that interview just tells us exactly how early we are. That it's almost unimaginable, truth be told, seeing a $1,000 XRP and over 300x in just 4 to 5 years. It seems unrealistic, almost improbable, considering that a $1,000 XRP at its current circulating supply would mean roughly a $58 trillion market cap, which right now we're only sitting at 4 for the total crypto market. But we have to take into account that market cap is not everything, not anymore. At least it won't be in the future, when all transactions, all commodities, all stocks, bonds, real estate, debt, everything we know, when everything comes on chain onto the XRP ledger, when quadrillions of dollars of liquidity comes on chain, that's what's going to change the price of XRP and crypto assets. XRP will soak up that liquidity and be valued so much more. Also knowing that you have governments like the United States who are preparing for a crypto strategic reserve, a national stockpile that will include assets like XRP. Listen closely here.
Other assets, I know we have Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, Cardano that were considered and brought up, maybe a part of the stockpile, right? Are you guys considering other crypto assets? And with the ones that are in those 5, what made you decide on those?
Well, first I'll just say the reason that we structured the SPR like we did is because Bitcoin is different. It's unique. It's a commodity, not a security. As David likes to say, it has the immaculate conception, meaning that there's no issuer. It has intrinsic stored value, and it's traditionally accepted stored value as well. And so, we wanted to make that distinction when we created Digital Assets National Stockpile along with the SPR. The reason that those 5 tokens were listed or mentioned is truly just based on market cap, the 5 largest market caps in this space. But for us, we still want to welcome and encourage innovation across many ecosystems in this space. And we understand that Bitcoin is the grandfather. We understand that it undergirds a lot of what's happening here. But that's not to say that we don't welcome these other players to continue to innovate, build on chain, and create just new technology for Americans to interact with. I mean, we're extremely supportive of that. I think that's one reason why we wanted to mention the Digital Assets National Stockpile and create that as well.
We know this already, but then think about it. If the US government and likely many more nations and institutions start creating their own strategic reserve for XRP, that will, drastically, significantly generate more demand, and supply won't be increasing. A supply shock will come in, therefore resulting in a considerable price increase for XRP. But the real value of an asset of money is not actually just in a store of value, not in a strategic reserve. What really makes money is it being able to be a store of value, a unit of account, and a mean of exchange. And XRP has the ability to be a store of value as their reserves being created for it, but also have the ability to be a unit of account, so things are denominated in XRP, and also a medium of exchange, for XRP to be used as payments and tokenized real-world asset worldwide, to replace or help legacy payment systems like SWIFT or even like the Federal Reserve. We can see here in this post from Smoke, Ripple already gains indirect access to the Federal Reserve's infrastructure via FIS integration as a third-party token service provider, as well as SWIFT. It's a very big deal. And to further drive that home, we can hear in this interview with Federal Reserve David Alderfato, he confirmed that clearing and settlement at the Fed can and likely will be delegated to third parties, therefore like Ripple and XRP. Take a listen here.
That is, people say, how can you trust the Fed to do the bookkeeping? I mean, like I said, my response is, well, you don't expect the Fed to kind of steal your money. I mean, if the Fed can print all the money at once, it's not going to mess around with your bookkeeping. So, we have this big spreadsheet, the blockchain if you want, but it's just managed by the Fed. And it's very cheap, much cheaper than Bitcoin, if you're willing to delegate the responsibility to a third party. But then the downsides to all of that, of course, is you'd actually, suppose you didn't want the Fed to be responsible for processing the payments. I mean, suppose, the Fed will likely impose some KYC restrictions on some purchases. They might not process some purchases that you might want to undertake. And so it was at that point that I said, well, we could, if we wanted to, extend the concept one step further. I'm not saying that this is ever going to happen, but just conceptually, you could imagine not FedWire for all, but kind of like a Fed coin, where what the Fed would do is actually just issue these, Bitcoin-like objects, but and they would enforce a par exchange rate with the U.S. dollar. That would eliminate the exchange rate volatility. But they could delegate the clearing of these payments to some third party, some sort of Ripple-like protocol, or possibly even Bitcoin. I mean, we could delegate the responsibility of processing these electronic, Fedcoin payments to the miners. And the idea there would be...
This further explains Ripple's pursuit for a Fed master account and why these legacy banks, or a lot of them seemingly, are trying to block Ripple from doing it. Because they know they cannot compete with Ripple and XRP, they have the perfect business model, and they're going to become obsolete otherwise. So a $1,000 XRP is more than just a pipe dream, with all the Ripple's connections to the Fed, to SWIFT, and many, many more, with the Bank of America saying 100% chance of ETFs this year. It's a real possibility we see a 1K XRP in the next 4 to 5 years. We are still early, family. And if you want to stay more locked in and up to date to benefit from the other incoming opportunities, then look no further here than the VIP. Rob.com/CoinFactory. From alpha information ahead of time, educational videos, trade alerts. We're making some very big trades right now, as you can see on screen, and private live every single week. You can check all of that out and much more for 7-day free as well. Link down below in the description. And as always, remember, do your own research, don't know short term, think long term, and I see you in the next one.